do kirtan. Mohan, isn't it Gerard Madhva? Oh, okay. Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radhe. Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Thank you so much. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm just going to say the prayers, and if you have a Bhagavad Gita with you, it should be at the beginning, and they are called the invocation prayers. So you can just follow along with me. Okay. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sarvadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Saha Gana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinobandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vancha Kalpa Tarubhyasya Cha Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone, and welcome to today's Bhagavad Gita class. I'm really grateful to be here and have this opportunity to facilitate today's class. So we will be going through, it's chapter 18, verse 54. And so I seek your blessings so that I can say something worthwhile to Vaishnavis on here and also online. So just to recap, that's chapter 18, verse 54. So these are all very, very, all of the verses are very beautiful, but yeah. Okay, so I'm just going to say the verse one time in Sanskrit, and then we can repeat together. Okay. Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangshati Same Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nasochati Nakangshati Sama Sarveshu Bhuteshu Madbhaktim Labhate Param. Now we'll just say the translation, so you could repeat after me. Brahma Bhuta, being one with the Absolute. Prasanna Atma, fully joyful. Na, never. Sochiti, laments. Na, never. Kankshati, desires. Sama, equally disposed. Sarveshu, to all. Bhuteshu, living entities. Madbhaktim, my devotional service. Labhate, gains. Param, transcendental. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. One who is thus transcendently situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments or desires to have anything. He is equally disposed towards every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Purport. To the impersonalist, achieving the Brahma Bhuta stage, becoming one with the Absolute, is the last word. But for the personalist or pure devotee, one has to go still further, to become engaged in pure devotional service. This means that one who is engaged in pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord is already in a state of liberation called Brahma Bhuta, oneness with the Absolute. Without being one with the Supreme, the Absolute, one cannot render service unto him. In the absolute conception, there is no difference between the served and the servitor, yet the distinction is there in a higher spiritual sense. In the material concept of life, when one works for sense gratification, there is misery. But in the absolute world, when one is engaged in pure devotional service, there is no misery. The devotee in Krishna consciousness has nothing for which to lament or desire. Since God is full, a living entity is engaged in God's service. In Krishna consciousness, becomes also full in himself. He is just like a river cleansed of dirty water. Because a pure devotee has no thoughts other than Krishna, he is naturally always joyful. He does not lament for any material loss or aspire for gain, because he is full in the service of the Lord. He has no desire for material enjoyment, because he knows that every living entity is a fragmental part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore eternally a servant. He does not see in the material world someone as higher or someone as lower. Higher and lower positions are ephemeral, and a devotee has nothing to do with ephemeral appearances or disappearances. For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. The idea of attaining the heavenly kingdoms become phantasmagoria, and the senses are like serpents, whose poison teeth are broken. As there is no fear of a serpent with broken teeth, there is no fear from the senses when they are automatically controlled. The world is miserable for the materially infected person, but for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky. The highest personality is this material universe is no more significant than an ant for a devotee. Such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srinivadi Prashkitya Deshtarine. Okay. So I'm just going to share some thoughts on this verse, and we'll make it very discussion based. So I would love to hear your thoughts as well, and we can go back and forth and explore this verse in more detail. So when I was reading this verse and trying to look deeply into it, there's three kind of themes which emerged for me. So the first one is that we have to go beyond the Brahma Bhuta stage. Beyond self-realization, and actually we have to move from this kind of impersonal state to having this very personal relationship with Krishna, and ultimately realize who we are, which are the servants, and that he is to be served, and develop that intimate relationship with him. The second theme that was evident was the nature of a transcendental devotee. So this verse here, we could see that it says that, one who is transcendentally situated, he never laments or desires for anything. He's equally disposed towards every living entity. And also we see in Srila Prabhupada's purport where he talks about what this transcendental devotee actually looks like. So, we can just meditate on what that looks like. And just to read that, like, it just gives, it's like a soothing balm for the soul to know that, like, that is, like, that's where we can also be that. And that actually, that this transcendental devotee is, not only all those things like joyful and satisfied, but he's fearless, and he's always protected by the Lord as well. And we'll talk about this in a bit more detail. And the third theme, which came out, is that mercy is required to attain pure devotional service. So in this verse, we can see that one who is transcendentally situated, and then at the end of that verse, it says, in that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. And then also at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that such a stage can be achieved by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, who preached pure devotional service in this age. So it's not something that we can work for, or, it's basically a gift that's given to us, and we can get it through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. So this theme around we need the mercy to actually get this pure devotional service. So we'll just go through those themes in a little bit more detail. So the first one is this, how we have to go beyond the Brahma Bhuta stage and go into self-realization. So I suppose, I guess this is just for those who perhaps think that, the kind of perfection is when you get to a stage where you're kind of detached from material life, and you're not engaging with your senses, and you're kind of just steady. I guess that's for those that are doing practicing hatha yoga, that stage of like samadhi, where like the chittas, like the chitta vrittis in the mind are just calm, and like they think, the yogis who are practicing that, they think that's ultimate perfection. But what Krishna is saying here is that that is only that only gets you to zero. So like, at the moment, being so materially entangled, we're at like almost -1. But then to get to that, what yogis would call samadhi, or the self-realized state, it gets you to 0. But actually, to what Krishna is saying is that there's a one, and that one is actually devotional service, is service to him. So it's not enough to just get to self-realization. And actually, in a lot of I don't know if traditions is the right way, but in a lot of spiritual practices, people also practice bhakti as a means to just get to like self-realization, and then they think that they can drop that because they've attained the goal. But actually, what Krishna is saying here is that we have to, well, I guess this verse can make you think that we have to get to self-realization first, and then we can only get to bhakti, but we'll come back to that. But basically, we shouldn't think that self-realization is the goal and that's it. No, there's so much more. So even I remember when I was doing my yoga teacher training, when we were speaking to the teacher, samadhi is the end goal, but actually in bhakti there's so many more stages after even samadhi, and there samadhi is the equivalent to nishtha, or like firm faith. But after that, we know that there's so many stages, and that's basically developing our love for God. And really and serving him. So that's one point. And I guess when I was reading this as well, I was thinking, one who is thus transcendentally situated, and we think, oh, what does transcendentally situated actually mean? Because you often hear people say like, oh, this person's so transcendental, or transcendental consciousness. But what I guess I just wanted to explore that a little bit. Like, what does being transcendentally situated mean, or what does transcendental consciousness actually mean? I don't know if you wanted to share some thoughts.
My understanding of transcendental is like, I guess there's no beginning and there's no end, and it's like forever lasting. So the question is, what is transcendental consciousness? I guess it's being, my understanding is being conscious and aware of like the truth,
Yeah.
the truth which has no beginning and no end.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess operating on like a spiritual level, basically. yeah, and recognizing the eternality. Yeah, thank you.
So when we look at the three different, can you hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you.
When we look at the three different modes of material nature, passion, ignorance, and goodness, but then Srila Prabhupada kind of expands on that beyond the mode of goodness, there's transcendental goodness. So I guess what it is that transcendental means that it is not encapsulated and restricted within the rules and laws of material nature.
Yeah,
Something that goes beyond that, as Mataji was saying. So it's spiritual,
yeah,
and spiritual. So spiritual is very difficult to sort of conceive without blessings and mercy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you so much. So, I mean, even if we go one verse back, the verse 51 to 53, Krishna is talking about, that transcendental devotee, and he says, being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech. So yeah, it's a list, and basically at the end he says such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. So those are some of the characteristics. And also, when I was just doing a little bit of reading, it's basically someone who is detached from their senses and doesn't need to engage their senses in the material world, in material objects, and who recognizes that they are eternal and spirit souls. So when you can detach from that and you can operate from a level of our true identity and who we really are, which is spirit soul, then we're acting on that transcendental platform. And only then is it really possible to attain some of these, characteristics. They're like symptoms of being, detached and transcendental. Yeah. Um, yeah, so I've actually got here just a few more verses. So again, Krishna mentions in Bhagavad Gita 255 what transcendental is. So he says that, O Partha, when a man gives up all varieties of desire for sense gratification which arise from mental concoction, when his mind, thus purified, finds satisfaction in the self alone, then he is said to be in pure transcendental consciousness. So again, Krishna defines that as being free from sense gratification and having those kind of desires. And then another verse, which I also just recently read the other day, which is really nice, which I guess talks about the description of a devotee essentially. But this is Yamaraj describing it to the Yamadutas when they were perplexed about, why Ajamal had been saved. And so he describes who a devotee actually is. And he says, devotees who always lick the honey from the lotus feet of Lord Krishna do not care at all for material activities, which are performed under the three modes of material nature, as he said, which bring only misery. Indeed, devotees never give up the lotus feet of Krishna to return to material activities. And then the rest of the description is about who the non-devotee is. But yeah, as you said, he's kind of above the three modes of material nature, not attached to material sense gratification, attached to the objects of this world, and is actually operating from a level of, who they are, which is spirit soul. So yeah, that's kind of what it means to be transcendentally situated. So now, the first question that could come to someone's mind is that is being self-realized, transcendentally, self-realized, is that a preliminary for bhakti? Because, as this verse says, is that, one who is transcendently situated, in that state, he attains pure devotional service. So that could, make someone think like, oh, does that mean it's a preliminary? So actually, no, on the contrary. Because actually, so that state of self-realization can be attained through other processes like jnana or yoga. So as as we know, that actually bhakti is all inclusive. There is no preliminary to it, and Krishna also says that in the Bhagavad Gita. I've got the verse here, but I can't. I think it's just two verses down. So 56, 1856. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my devotee under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode of my grace. And in that kind of purport, Srila Prabhupada is showing that, it's accessible to everybody. But yeah, actually, if we did try to get to this self-realized state, but without, if we try to get to that state without bhakti, it would actually be artificial. So is anyone here, can they remember any examples from the Srimad Bhagavatam in particular where that kind of self-realized state has been attained but without bhakti, and what the consequence of that is? So the first one that I thought was the example of Shobhari Muni. So he was engaged in austerity deep in the Yamuna, and he was completely detached. He was like, in meditation. But then, as soon as he saw a pair of fish engaged in, who were basically mating, he perceived the pleasure of sex life, and he was induced by desire, and so he actually fell from his position. So to get to self-realization but without bhakti is almost impossible in this age of Kali Yuga, because those desires which we have, which want us to have that kind of those sense gratification, they're like deep rooted in our hearts. And so all those other processes like yoga, jnana, they won't actually eradicate the desire there. Whereas with bhakti, we can actually do that. So it's not that we need those preliminaries, that preliminary self-realization in order to get to bhakti. It's quite the other way. That actually by, taking on to the process of bhakti, all the other bits are included within that. It's a kind of all-inclusive package. If you have like a bronze, silver, gold, a platinum, it's like bhakti is a platinum. And if we just go straight to bhakti, you get all the other levels already. And so self-realization is already included within that. Shraddha Gokulam, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman Ki Jai. Yeah.
And initially it was like, oh, I just want to kind of help the deer because Krishna or whatever, but then eventually he kind of fell in love with it and he got attached to it.
Yeah.
Became a deer in his next life. So based on what you're saying is that no matter how much we help people, if bhakti is not in the central, or no matter what kind of spiritual practice we have, if bhakti is not in the central, we actually kind of risk becoming attached to the side effects of things rather than actually focusing on the central point of why we do what we do.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And that without bhakti, the effects aren't very lasting, is that we'll fall back down to our initial tendencies and our initial habits, because the root of that desire and those desires for sense gratification in this material world will always be there. They'll still be there. And so actually, if we want to get to the self-realized stage, basically what Krishna is saying is that just by attaining bhakti, we can actually get there by itself. And I mean, me personally, I remember I used to be like very much into like self-help books and reading and like psychology and trying to understand different states of mind and why what happens and stuff. And then I just remember getting to a point where I'm like, even when I was in a kind of muddy situation, like I know the theory and the intelligence, but I couldn't help but act or be a certain way. And that was for me like evidence that you can know everything, but if those desires and if that way of being, if those samskaras are deep within, like no matter what you know, like it's not going to do anything. And so that's just evidence. And actually, a lot of those things, as I've practiced bhakti, like naturally they've just come, and it's not even been a big deal, but it's like when I reflect back, I'm like, oh, I don't do that anymore, or so it's very evident that we can get this state through just practicing bhakti. So yeah, what was I? And I guess like, but a lot of the other processes in this day and age, like meditation or yoga, like it's kind of like you're meditating on nothing, on voidness. And it's said that an idle mind is the devil's workshop. So we have to engage our mind and our senses in something. And so by engaging them in bhakti, we're actually purifying our senses. And so by purifying our mind and our senses, we're then getting less desire. When we have less desire for sense gratification, then we experience less of those like ups and downs as well. So in this verse, nasochiti nakangshti. And so then when we experience a lot less of those highs and the lows, then we're steady. And so then its material desires don't slowly start to, we just don't need them anymore. So this point around using bhakti as a way to actually purify ourselves as well, and that, bhakti in itself will give us this transcendental state. We don't need anything else. That's it. So yeah, that was this point of like, is self-realization a prerequisite for bhakti? And the answer is no, it's not. We can go straight for bhakti, and the rest is all encompassed, or it's like all inclusive. Okay, so then the second theme, which I wanted to explore, was the nature of a transcendental devotee. So in this verse, it says that, in the verse it says that, a transcendental devotee becomes fully joyful, satisfied, fearless. He never laments. Like, that is such a great state to be in. And I think sometimes I was just thinking, it's like, it's nice to meditate on that, because like I feel like it's an impetus to carry on, or can be, I guess in the initial stages anyways. So from the second paragraph of this verse in the purport, are there any bits which really capture you about that kind of nature of a transcendental devotee? So, and this is for those who have just come in, it's 1854 that we're on. Yeah, any sort of characteristics of the devotee who is joyful, satisfied, and fearless, who's transcendentally situated, that really appeal to you, and you're like, ah, yeah, satisfied, yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think from Srila Prabhupada's purport, he talks about why that actually is. And he says it's because since God is full, a living entity, since God is full, a living entity who's engaged in God's service in Krishna consciousness becomes also full in himself. So it's really, really nice that we also kind of get God's fullness, and we therefore feel content and satisfied ourselves. Yeah. Anyone else?
I really like the sentence, he does not see in the material world someone as higher and someone as lower. I think it's really easy to see with like our material vision, to discriminate between people. But yeah, this just reminds me of the verse of everyone, the verse around treating the cow, the brahmana, dog, creation as equal.
Yeah, thank you so much. So yeah, you're saying that this quality of being equal to all, no matter who, and I think again, if we try to do that with our material operating, in our with our material vision, like you said, with our material intelligence and mind, it really is impossible to do that, I think. But I think through bhakti, we not only discover who we are, which is eternal parts and parcels of Krishna, but then we also start seeing other people as that, and we don't connect with them on a material level anymore, and we start connecting with them on a spiritual level. So again, it's just evident that this process of bhakti, through really going, taking that on board, the rest will follow. Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, I've got here. Yeah, but for a devotee, the entire world is, yeah. So the one I liked was, I think for most, this kind of material world can become quite hellish, but yeah, the world is a miserable place for the materially infected person. But for a devotee, the entire world is as good as Vaikuntha, or the spiritual sky, which is really nice. That and we hear from that, a devotee, even if they're in hell, like for them, that's okay because they're engaged in the service of Krishna. So to be in a place where no matter what, you can just see everything as Vaikuntha, like that's amazing. So yeah, just that was just a little meditation of the nature of a transcendental devotee, and and how actually the devotee is always protected, which is one other thing that I wanted to say. I think in the purport, Srila Prabhupada does talk about this. Oh yeah, so that the devotee actually has no fear, which is such a amazing place to be in. And I think once there's a story that one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples asked him, like, what do you feel when you chant the Maha Mantra? And he said, I feel fearless. And so it's just, if we take shelter of the holy names, and to the degree that we put our faith in it, to that degree, the holy name will also reciprocate with us. So just putting our faith in the holy name, and actually we can become fearless in this material world. And again, in one of my sanghas where we're studying Canto 6, this verse came up. It says, the Vishnu Dutas protect the devotees of the Lord from the hands of enemies, from envious persons, and even from my jurisdiction, as well as from natural disturbances. And in that purport, Srila Prabhupada said that material danger is not meant for devotees. This is also confirmed in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Param Param Yad Vipadam Natesham. In this material world, there are dangers at every step, but they are not meant for devotees who have fully surrendered onto the lotus feet of the Lord. The pure devotees of Lord Vishnu may rest assured of the Lord's protection. And as long as they are in the material world, they should fully engage in devotional service by preaching the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Krishna. So that's also one thing, that we can take shelter of the Lord and actually truly become fearless. And the more we take shelter, the more fearless we will feel in our everyday dealings, because we'll just know that everything that's happening to us, even though from the outside it may seem scary or, not in line with what we think it is, we'll just feel this pacification that, yeah, whatever is happening is for my good, and, Krishna wouldn't do anything that is not good for me. So, yeah, that was also just a quality of the devotee that I really, really liked.
What's your thought on this? For him, stone and gold are of equal value. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage, and this stage is attained very easily by the pure devotee. In that stage of existence, the idea of becoming one with the Supreme Brahman and annihilating one's individuality becomes hellish. Because it kind of seems like in the first section, the example that, both gold and silver are of the same equal value, and then later on it's like, oh, for a devotee, kind of merging one with
Yeah, yeah.
is like,
Yeah, so my understanding is that like we wouldn't view anything as higher or lower, because everything here is a part and parcel of Krishna. But then I think this is where the Achinta Beta Beta philosophy comes in, because whilst we're equal with God, we're equal with God in qualities. So we have the same qualities as him, but of course, by quantity, he's the source of everything. He's our maintainer and he's our protector. So to merge into oneness with him would be hellish, because we want to have that relationship with him, but yet we see sort of all the other living entities as equal. But we're still distinct as souls, but we're equal on the equal level. And of course, Krishna is above us all. So to merge into oneness would mean we don't have our individuality, they don't have their individuality, and it's nothing. Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah. So that was a second theme. And then the third theme is that mercy is required to attain pure devotional service. So, what we're basically saying here is that, one thing that we should go for is bhakti. And if we go for bhakti, everything is included in there and we don't need to think about anything else. And so, how do we actually get this bhakti? Well, so in here, at the very end, at the very last word of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says that this mercy is required of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so we think, well, okay, how do we get that mercy? So again, I'm referring to two verses. So one is actually, again, from the 6th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 3rd chapter. I think this is the 22nd verse, where it says, devotional service beginning with the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the ultimate religious principle for the living entity in human society. And so yeah, basically devotional service starts with chanting of the holy name. And in the Sangha that I was talking about, a really beautiful devotee made this point that when, I don't know how many of you know the story of Ajamal, just a show of hands. Yeah. So the story of Ajamal really, very, very briefly, is that he spent basically the majority of his life performing sinful activities. He left his wife and his kids, married a prostitute, and, maintained himself by committing, by stealing and all sorts. And, even at the age of, in his late years of 60, 70, he was still having children as opposed to concentrating on God. Basically, God was out of his picture. But by some good fortune, he was advised to name his youngest son Narayan. And so at the time of death, he could tell that he was about to pass away, and he saw these really scary figures come, and these scary figures are basically the Yamadutas who had come to take him back to Yamaraj for his punishment for his sinful life. And as soon as he saw them, he called out his son's name, which is Narayan. So as we know from the Bhagavad Gita, that Krishna promises that one who takes my name at the time of death is guaranteed to come back to me. So because he said the word Narayan, even though he wasn't actually thinking of the Lord, but because he said the Lord's name, the Vishnu Dutas, the Lord's servants, actually came to save him. So that's just the story of Ajamal, and actually it goes to show the potency of the holy name and, the promise that the Lord makes. Like if he makes a promise, even if he has to break his own promises, as we know from the Mahabharata, he will come and, protect us, and which he did in this case. So this is now Yamaraj basically explaining that, this devotional service actually starts with chanting of the holy name. And so the devotee that I was talking about, who made this point in our Sangha, she said that only after he chanted the holy name of Narayan did he then get the association of the Vishnu Dutas. So as soon as he chanted the holy name of the Lord, it was the Vishnu Dutas who came, and then at the time of death, like they were having this conversation that like, no, we should take him to hell. And he was like, no, but he chanted the holy name of the Lord, so he shouldn't be taken to hell. His life will be extended. And so this argument was going on. And so she made this point that just by him chanting that holy name, he got this association of the pure devotees. And then because he got this association of the pure devotees, he basically got another chance at life. And I was hearing that it's actually when we have this, it's called near-death experience, is because there's been like a miscalculation of our lives. So yeah, it was really interesting. So just by chanting of the holy name, by chanting of the Maha Mantra, we can, get association of the devotees. And once we get association of the devotees, a lot of other blessings, a lot of realizations, so many things come. And it's kind of like this cyclical process. And then, slowly through that process, we can start seeing within ourselves these changes that start to take place. And we start getting closer and closer to this like self-realization, which is some of the qualities that we were actually talking about. Yeah.
It's very interesting. A lot of people, well, at least, okay, I can't say a lot of people, but at least I found that sometimes we chant because we want to kind of control the mind or overcome the senses. But I was hearing how Shiva Maharaj says is that that's a side effect in the Shastakam, that many devotees may desire that they want to kind of conquer their mind and they want to chant, and that's the reason they're chanting, but that's the side effect. It isn't the main purpose of the Maha Mantra.
Yeah.
So how do we connect with the like Ajahn was very fortunate because I'm sure he did something in his past life, whatever, just purely chanting and Narayan, that kind of liberated him. But for us, how do we kind of really try and nourish and find the central focal or what the main point of why we're chanting is, rather than how
Yeah.
just want to overcome
Yeah. Why we chant, basically, and how to
how can we centralize the real
have that mood. Yeah. So different people will have like different reasons for why they chant. And like you said, some people will be for purification. For some people it would be just, simply to control the mind and the senses. And by chanting the mantra, you're, pacifying that mind, and you're creating a focus. And ultimately, like, just through doing that in itself, I guess that purification happens, and then, you'll slowly get to that stage. But, to, I guess, kind of fast track the process, personally, and like also what I've heard is needed is faith in the holy name. Because at the end of the day, like, faith is the building block, is the foundation to everything we do. And to the degree that we have faith in the holy name, to the degree of that we have faith in Krishna, to that degree that things will work for us. And the way to actually get proper faith, one of them is called Shastriya Shraddha, to develop our faith through reading the Shastras. And like, for me personally, like, the more and more that I can read Srimad Bhagavatam, the more and more those stories actually get ingrained in your mind. And so next time, an event happens, you'll think of the stories in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and you'll be like, well, this is how this devotee acted, and then, the Lord came and protected him, and then he did this. And it's almost like you can rewire your brain as per Srimad Bhagavatam, and not according to the way that things are happening in this material world, which is actually, quite frankly, a bit crazy and not right. So it's to develop that faith, and to develop that faith, we have to develop faith in the Guru, and because it's difficult to trust Krishna because we can't see him, we don't really have interactions with him. But who we can develop faith in is people around us, like the devotees, and in our Guru, who can actually, talk to us and develop that. And so developing faith in the Guru, then developing faith in the Shastra, and slowly, like, through developing that, even through reading a Jamal's story, like, I remember the first time I read it, I was like, whoa, the potency of the holy name. And it gave me that faith. And so the next time I was chanting, it, like, my mood was different. I wasn't doing it I was doing it for and obviously, you go back to your old ways. And that's why, daily reading and daily hearing is recommended. So that's how we can develop our faith, which is really important. And we can, we learn this through there's three different ways that we acquire knowledge. Does anyone know them? I don't know this. I can't remember the Sanskrit words for them. But anyone? Acquiring. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. I should probably close now. But yeah, there's three ways. So one's through experience, one's through hearing, and yeah, I think the other one's through contemplate. I might be wrong, but essentially, we can develop everything we need through simply by hearing and reading these stories. We don't need to experience it and stuff, and so through that we can, yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your association and for allowing me to facilitate this class. Yeah, let's just conclude. Vanchakalpatarubhasya charkrapasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you.
I think it's a little bit high, maybe. No, it's too high. It needs to go down. Yeah, I think that's good, yeah. Thank you, bro.
You want me to accompany you with this, or you prefer to play by yourself?
Yeah, I need to keep it on my own as well, but you can also do.
A very good player. I can show you. Today.
Was it good though?
Yeah, it was good. It was very good.
It's okay.
It just will be disturbing.
bajayo jaya gorachande arati Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram, Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Brinda Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Yamuna Mai Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, Sri Gauranga, Sri Prabhupada. So now we're going to sing the Nisema prayer. Stay put, please be seated for prayer song form.
Hold on. Working. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Praladadadayine. Hiranyakashipu lakshaha. Hare Nrsimha Bhagavan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Premanande.
Hare Krishna. So before you all go, just a short announcement. First of all, can I get Hare Krishna? Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. So how many of you have been to Janmashtami here at Bhaktivedanta Manor? Raise of hand. Okay, brilliant. Some of you, not all of you. So quite a few days ago, we've had one devotee, part of the car park team for Bhaktivedanta Manor during main festival, that passed away from a heart attack. So in the Haveli, the new building in the Kirtan Hall, there's a memorial program right now for him, and then there'll be some Kirtan. You're all more than welcome to join and to get involved and to pray for him and pray that he has a safe and healthy and spiritual onward journey. Such a wonderful devotee, the biggest smile, positive. I'm sure if many of you have been to Bhaktivedanta Manor festivals, you would have probably seen him. His name is Manoj Bhai Patel. So please, I encourage devotees, spiritual life is not just about us. Spiritual life is not about just me, it's about us. So just as we would like for people to attend and come to our funeral, our memorial, to pray for us, let's also be there for others and do the same. So I encourage you all, take some prasadam and go to the Haveli and get involved in some kirtan and some prayer. And that will expand your own devotion and your own bhakti. Hare Krishna. Vancha kalpatarubhishcha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha anantakoti vaishnavinda. Hare Krishna.
Anyway.